Now, more stories, insights, and analysis of Illinois policy and politics. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project. Once again, your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan and Pat back on this edition of Rising, and Pat, Rauner tried to make a splash on the property tax issue this week. Did the governor of Country Club Hills, visiting the south suburbs that's been decimated by the Cook County property tax classification system, just destroyed. There's been nothing done about it, but now the governor, kind of consistent with what he's doing on income taxes. I promised you I was going to do something about it by the end of my first term. I didn't, or I made it worse. Now I'm promising you I'm going to do something at the end, by the end of my second term, right? I was going to repeal the Quinn tax increase. I reinstated it, but now I'm going to repeal the second term. So believe me, it's the same thing on property taxes. And so his sort of virtue signaling press release political angle on property taxes was to issue an executive order prohibiting state legislators from representing clients before the state's property tax appeals board, which is, sort of no big deal because, as everybody knows, including the governor, which is why it's so disingenuous, Madigan and Burke and the other property tax appeals impresarios make all their money at the local level, particularly in Cook County.
Yeah, and that's why this is just a campaign promise, Dan, that he's not going to actually do anything for. Conceptually, the idea of preventing these types of arrangements is very, very good, but he just wants to make a campaign promise. He wants to tie Pritzker and his connections to Barrios and his the tax deduction he got on a smaller mansion. This is all just political.
Speaking of property taxes and, by extension, home prices and home sales, we took a look at this. NorthCookNews.com. We're doing some analyses throughout the region. We just started this week. So we looked at Cook County year-over-year home sales, comparing the change in sale price, the 2017 median sales price, versus the 2016 median sales price, adjusted for inflation throughout Cook County. Here's something interesting. Prices on all of those Tony North Shore communities, Kenilworth, Winnetka, Wilmette, Glencoe, Glenview, Northfield, all fell in real terms, 17 over 16. They still have the highest priced homes, median sales price in Kenilworth, $1.12 million, in Winnetka, $963,000. But they're off a significant dollar amount because, a small percentage is significant dollars when you're at that price point. So, for example, Winnetka is down 8%, Kenilworth is down 9%, Wilmette down 8%, Northfield down 7%. And this is in a year where we had a 30% return on the Dow, 30% growth in the Dow, where you've had 3% GDP growth for the last 3 quarters of last year. Good times, relatively speaking, particularly if you want to just look at this year and not just go back to 2007. In point of fact, even communities that saw an increase in their median sales price in 17 versus 16, they're still 40 to 90% off their highs at the top of the market before the Great Recession.
Yeah, and Dan, these wealthy communities that you call them champagne socialists that sometimes feel that they're insulated from bad economic policy because they have money are not. I mean, you're talking about massive losses of net worth here, and you're talking about the consequential pain that causes in the economy when these folks can't reinvest, et cetera. And hopefully this is part of what needs to be done to stoke the revolt, right? This is actually Rauner's base. In the last 3 years, in his North Shore base, while he's been governor, they've been getting hammered, even though, like you say, under Trump, who Rauner hates, the nation is really picking up economically. So if this doesn't stoke the revolt amongst those people, I don't know what would.
Yeah, and if you look at the 10-year trend lines in home prices in those south suburbs that he temporarily stopped by, did a drive-by in Country Club Hills for his presser. I mean, year over year, for example, in Harvey, just down the street from Country Club Hills, minus 12%, 2017 to 2016, minus 12%. Median home sales price in Harvey, $22,000.
Yeah, and what's the tax bill associated with it? That's the other thing, right?
Oh,
the reason why that number is $22,000 is because nobody can pay the taxes. So now there's all this lost value, all this lost equity. Those are communities, Dan, that in the past 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago were burgeoning communities for African Americans and other minorities where they could build businesses and build lives, and it's all been decimated. And the governor, and certainly nobody on the Democratic side, is doing anything policy-wise to change this. And the only way to do this is to cap property taxes and lower the income tax.
Well, and we talked about the high end, getting to the low end. The community that felt the largest negative impact, the community with the highest property taxes as a percentage of home value, Ford Heights, one of the poorest communities in the nation. A median home price, 2017 versus 2016, down 61%. The median home price in Ford Heights is $3,750.
That's an astounding statistic. I don't think people have a fundamental understanding. There are people living in that community. It used to be a community, like I said before, with churches and businesses and families, and now it's just people lingering on so that they can finance the government through their property tax. Their homes have no value.
Well, that's the thing. It's two things that are happening, right? And these numbers demonstrate it. One is you're destroying any possibility for return on investment in middle and upper ends, right? There's no return. There's no real return on an investment in your home unless you bought in 16 to flip in 17, right? Which not too many people do that. And then secondly, it precludes home ownership.
Correct.
Because it doesn't make sense to buy a home because your equity is going to be destroyed by property taxes immediately. So you're paying a fraction of your mortgage represents a fraction of your overall monthly nut. It's mostly property taxes. So what's the point of that kind of expenditure if you can't achieve a real return on investment? So it's that kind of terrible pincer movement that the state government and local governments are using to attack property values.
So people won't buy, which is bad because they can't start getting on the American dream. And then the people who have bought and have invested and have paid property taxes and have lived in a community and have cut lawns and have gone to bake sales and done all the things that a community does, they're being completely decimated under the weight of AFSCME and the trial lawyers and Bruce Rauner and the Democrats.